This day is a long time coming, a couple decades, if you will. Thank you so much, Adrian, for that warm introduction. If you haven't heard Adrian's testimony as of recent, the past year transformation I've seen in this guy I've known for 22 years, you need to get with him outside of here and hear what the work God has done with him in the past year. Thank you, Teresa, for all the hand-holding. Teresa reached out to me, I believe, last quarter of 2024. I said, I know how to remove anxiety. All the rest, I don't know. PowerPoint, bio, of which Mark did my bio for me. Bob did my PowerPoint. Adrian, I think, got me the professional pictures. I needed all the hand-holding in the world, and I can't thank you enough, Teresa, for making this long time coming day actually happen. You guys get to watch me fumble through using reading glasses while I'm up here as well for the first time in a public forum. That's me, about 8 years old, outside in that pool. I grew up here at the Hunt Club. Had my rehearsal wedding in this room 20 years ago.
I was at his wedding.
And then, as some of you in this room know, in early adolescence, I also started blowing up my life with maladaptive behaviors. That guy right there, Chris Cullen, in the glasses, the lacrosse coach, he can testify. He grew up at this club with me. Erica knew me in high school. There's, if you don't believe what I'm about to share with you, these guys can testify to it. You'll notice, actually, Chris is in one of these pictures. That's Chris, the tan guy right there. My Grateful Dead shirt in my teen years. And then here, if you can see the stitches there, that was something I did really high with hedge trimmers, put it right into my knee at my parents' home in Bloomfield as my life progressed into addiction. Then ultimately, full-blown addiction. This is me in my dorm room in Colorado, high as a kite, mixed drink in my hand. Then the other picture is me in my 1985 Volkswagen van again that I bought passive-aggressively so I could park it in my parents' home in their driveway in Bloomfield. That's the kind of kid that I was. And actually, that van is packed up, ready to take me back to Colorado, where I was going to school. My mother had to drive because I didn't have a license. So my poor mother had to drive that thing from here to Crested Butte, Colorado, to drop me off to take a plane back home. That's the kind of kid I was. And then, as some of you in this room also know, I'm truly just a guy with a gift from God. I got expelled from high school, bailed out of college 3 times before finally dropping out altogether when I realized that they were teaching me what to think, not how to think. And that's where God comes in. That there's me and my wife on our wedding day at the Detroit Golf Club. And what do we got there? That's me, 4 months sober, with my sister. And where are we? Beaufort, South Carolina. Funny story behind this. I actually snuck out of the halfway house that I was in. I complied mostly. Some habits die slower than others. But I told the halfway house I was going on a retreat with my sponsor, my AA sponsor. And I went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to meet my sister to see my favorite rock and roll band for a few nights. So some habits die slower than others. So I was put on this planet to radically change a vast number of lives for the better. That's not something that I came up with. That was a word that started being prophesied over me pretty early on in the couple years after I met the Lord. This was the word that started getting spoken over me from various people around the country, and that's been one of my mottos and kind of my leading light ever since. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys through a very, very quick bullet-pointed summary of my testimony here. It's relevant to what I'm going to share with you regarding anxiety solutions, and CBRT asked me to do so as well. So bear with me as I go through this in breakneck speed. My full testimony takes easily 2 hours to tell. Not because I'm special, but because he is special and the goodness that God has done in my life. Alrighty, here we go. So I went to rehab in 2000. I've been sober ever since, so that puts us at about 24 years. Easter 2001 is when I met the Lord at a church down in Florida. I was about a year sober and met the Lord. And the two things I knew at that salvation experience, that Easter service, right away when I came to, there's a group of men praying over me. I now know Jesus, and I'm no longer a hateful, racist bigot that I had become in the early years of my life. Fast forward from there, I was a couple years sober. I got hit with crippling depression. I was back in Michigan, living at my parents' home, and I was either stuck in bed or stuck in the couch, sleeping for months and months on end until I could finally find the right doctor that could give me the right, medication combo to pull me out of it. And since that time, the Lord has healed me. I've done a whole lot of work in myself, medication-free, and overcome that crippling depression that I had around 2002. Shortly after that is when the prophecy you see up here, radically change a vast number of lives for the better, started to present itself. Then I got married. Then I found myself to Mount Zion, where I would put it as I began my next level equipping in the Lord. Been at Mount Zion for 20 years now. Then I decided I was going to go back to school to get my PsyD, because how are you going to change a vast number of lives for the better if you don't have an advanced degree? Completely forgetting that I don't play friendly with academia. I ended up dropping out, as I said, when I realized they were teaching me what to think and not how to think. I called my childhood friend, Tim Pascarella, most successful guy I knew. I said, "Hey, Timmy, I'm coming to work for you," and he hung up on me because he wasn't sure what to make of that new, sober, faith-filled Chuck. I called him back, convinced him to hire me, and went into the business world and had tremendous success. However, that's when my first, I would say, real wrestling with God began, because albeit I was successful in business working with my best childhood friend who I did all the horrible things in my addiction with, I wasn't changing a vast number of lives for the better. I knew that God wasn't having me in mortgages. That wasn't what he meant. So that wrestling with God began. I eventually gave up on the call that God had in my life in that wrestling. I just finally said, "God, I'm sorry. I'm just not your guy. I'm not going to do it." And went on from there. God does get our attention, though. I can't keep track of the years. I think it's an age thing. I'm 48. A couple weeks ago type thing. And so God will get us our attention. I want to say whenever it was, at some point along this journey, more than 10 years, 2010-ish, I'm thinking. I don't know when it was. I got hit with crippling anxiety. I didn't know what it was. I ended up in the emergency room down in Royal Oak 3 times. That third time I was there, I said, "Look, Doc, I'm not leaving until you run every test on every test under the sun for me." And he did. He comes back and he says, "Again, Mr. Edwards, you're a perfect bill of health." And I had a God moment sitting there in that gurney, that hospital bed, and I said, "Okay, so if this thing is good to go, that means this, whatever I got going on, must be in here." I didn't know it was anxiety. I didn't know what anxiety was at that time. Fast forward a few days, some Googling or whatever I did, I arrived at, I've got that anxiety thing going on. And if I'm honest, I probably laughed at anxiety prior to that. If you've never had it, it's pretty hard to understand type thing. And by the time I figured out it was anxiety, I was agoraphobic. I couldn't leave my home up in Clarkston. I could barely leave my wife's side. I became terrified of all kinds of random objects in the home. My wife had to get out of the house. And I was in prison. It was awful. My wife had to cancel business trips and stuff she had going on because of my anxiety. Luckily, I was more vain than I was anxious, and I needed to get a haircut. I got to look good. I went to see a gal that some of us know, Annie Robinson at the time, now married, Annie Allen. No, she was married then, Annie Allen, to get a haircut. Someone I knew kind of eased the anxiety, and I went and I sat down in her haircut chair up at Orion Township up there. And before I didn't say a word, I knew about my anxiety. She proceeds to tell me that her husband Joe has been struggling with anxiety for 2 years, and it's gotten so bad that he is afraid of daylight, and he goes into the basement of their home during daylight hours, draws the blinds, and sits in the dark until it's night again. That saved my life. I didn't acknowledge it to her in that moment. I'm sitting in that chair going, "You got to be kidding me. I am absolutely not going to allow this anxiety to have me be Joe," who's entirely overcome his anxiety since, praise God. And that, her sharing that with me began the fight of my life. I'm going to overcome this thing. Went to some doctors, got on some medication. Nothing was working quite right for me. And my buddy Timmy is calling me. Chuck, I can only hold your job for so long. I'm in Clarkston, office is in Royal Oak. I can't get to Royal Oak. What are you kidding me? I'm terrified of freeways. I can't get stuck in traffic. Like, all these anxiety things got me. Dude, I need you to get back to work. All right, we got to figure this out. And so systematically, for the next year of my life, I just started, facing, overcoming, conquering all those fears. Fears of being stuck in traffic, fear of going into a mall, fear of going into a venue, fear of flying, and so on and so forth. And just started pushing myself through all of it until that year mark, about, if you will, I finally flew unmedicated by myself to Florida for a business meeting. Prior to that, it was fly with a bunch of Xanax in me with my family, and then fly by myself with a bunch of Xanax. And finally, that freedom mark was I flew by myself to some training I went to down there in Florida, medication free. I was totally free from the anxiety, set free. Where are we here? Oh, and then one day, God decided he was going to remind me of my calling. I got a phone call. Hey, Chuck, this is Andrea. Shannon told me to call you, and you would know what to do. And what Andrea was calling for was an alcohol intervention for her husband. In the coming days, I executed that intervention in quick fashion, hacked it together, I should say, my very first one. I went to rehab. I know rehab. All right, we got that box checked. We need money for rehab. Oh, Sean's money, the husband. They're best friends of mine today. And off Sean went to rehab. And then that was God reminding me, I was put on the planet to radically change a vast number of lives for the better. I continued my wrestling with God. In my head, I'm thinking, all right, God, I'm still not going back to school. Entry-level positions, in the helps field, if you will, mental health field, aren't going to pay the bills. God, what are we going to do here? It was a Wednesday night at Mount Zion Church up in Clarkston that I've been attending for however long at that point. I was so discontented. I mean, I was just a mess, not doing this, and couldn't figure out how to get into helping people. Wednesday night, I'm pacing back and forth at service, and I look up at the screen. It's a scripture I've known, or a sentiment I've known in the Bible. We all probably know in this room. Up on the screen, I look as Pastor Lauren is preaching. I've got pastors from my church here. And up on the screen, I look up, it says, I equip those that I call. That was my surrender moment. Right there in that service, God, I am all in. This went out. He's going to equip me. I'm in. Let's go. Ironically, not long after that, Pastor Lauren, head pastor over at Mount Zion Church, started prophesying over me that I yield the sword of deliverance. Yield the sword of deliverance. I'm like, well, that's pretty sweet. And over, I'd go to like Tuesday morning prayer service, regular, kept praying this over me. And in my mind, I get this vision that I've got a battle sword, like a big, long sword that I can just kind of stand back and help people get better, type thing. For years, I carried that in my mind. The one day I do this thing, Bob Duco is where I learned it from, intellectual honesty. Wait a minute, what is the sword of deliverance? I look into it in Scripture and Google and stuff. I arrived at, presumably it's right, that the sword of deliverance is more of a pocket knife. It's a little dagger where I'm going to get up right next to people and help them. I'm not going to stand back. My point being is that's exactly what I do today. With the people I work with and my clients, I get in the trenches with them. I get into their struggle with them, and I'm right by their side, and I might even get some blood on me as if I have the sword of deliverance, this little pocket dagger, not this big, long sword where I can be cush and comfortable from afar. So that wrestling with God turned more to a game planning with God. How are we going to make this work? I got to do it. This discontented feeling isn't working for me. To no avail, though. Fast forward December 30th, 31st of whatever year it was. I had done all my Con Ed to renew my financial licenses. And I was putting in my credit card to make my final payment to be fully licensed, sitting in my home office where I still operate out of, one of my offices, up in Clarkston, Michigan. As I'm typing in my credit card, it hit me, wait a minute. If I don't renew my financial licenses, flip the calendar a day or two, I'm going to be unlicensed. I threw my wallet aside, I shut my laptop, and I walked out of my office. It was game time. I hadn't consulted my wife. I hadn't consulted my father, who's a national level executive coach. I was running after God with everything that I had. And the only thing that I knew is God told me, Chuck, be a yes man. Be a yes man. Only thing I knew. Walking away from income, going to zero. Chuck, be a yes man. Immediately, within a week's time, God blessed me with like a book of clients. Be a yes man. Chuck, do you work with depression? I do. Chuck, do you work with bipolar? I do. Do you work on marriages? I do. Chuck, my bipolar antisocial personality disorder son's getting kicked out of rehab right now in Los Angeles. How quickly can you get on a plane, or can you get on a plane and go help him? I can. I didn't know anything. God told me, be a yes man. So I would show up to go meet with people, just telling them I could fix whatever it was they're coming to me for. You know, nervous as all get out, but he is good. And I would show up to go meet with these people and sit down, and it was as if I'm listening to the person in one ear, and I've got the Holy Spirit in the other ear. Chuck, do this now. Say this now. Write this down. Line upon line, precept upon precept. The Lord started teaching me everything I needed to know to help people change their lives for the better, ultimately arriving at this anxiety solution. No degrees, no worldly credentials. Here I am in business full-time, helping radically change a vast number of lives for the better, because he is good. Mount Zion Church, actually Dr. Jeannie Cagle sitting right here, introduced an overcoming anxiety and depression counseling class. We've got a whole host of them going on at our church up there in Clarkston. I attended the first rollout of it. It was the 10 weeks that Jeannie taught. During attending that, the burden hit my heart. Anxiety is a big problem in America. Come to find out, it's America's #1 epidemic. I overcame anxiety, and this burden just hit my heart. We need to do something, meaning me. I've got a righteous anger at anxiety, to say the least. And that burden was placed on me when I was attending Jeannie's first 10 weeks of that class. Blessed beyond, I don't even know the right word, blessed beyond belief, Jeannie handed me the class to start teaching it from that point on. And that's the class Adrian was referring to that I teach Monday nights, 7 to 8 o'clock at night up in Orion Township, ongoing. Having delivered myself from anxiety, I gathered a lot of intel in the class that Jeannie created, and then parlayed it with my own experience and Googling and different stuff, figuring out, what did I do to overcome my anxiety? I just hacked it together on my own to save my life, but it worked. What are the simple actionable items that I did to get through the fear of traffic? What did I do to actually be able to go to Tiger Stadium and not have to leave because I was too full of anxiety? And pieced it together and arrived at what today I would call a time-tested, proven, endless amount of clients I've worked with locally here in Michigan and coast to coast, helping them overcome their unwanted anxiety symptoms. And then wrapping it up, so today God has blessed me with 2 offices here in Metro Detroit, and as Adrian said, I travel nationally across the country working with kids 13 and older, or people 13 and older. I think I've done 13 to 77. And then if the kids are younger, I will coach the parents how to take their rightful role as the parent of how to do what they need to do for their kid, with me in the background quarterbacking it for them. Boom, 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 boom. That's what I'm going to bring you today. So sharing my testimony, one might say it's a testimony of transformation, renewal of the mind. And that's exactly what we need to do to overcome our anxieties and depressions. So most of us know the scriptures, I would say. Perfect peace I give you. Cast all your cares upon the Lord. But are we abiding? Are we doing those things? Are we doing them with some things and not others? At the end of the day, payroll just has to get done, whether God is in my struggle in that moment of anxiety or stress or not. The task just has to get done. Are we just self-willing it, or are we bringing God alongside with us in it? So when we think on or entertain negative, self-defeating thoughts or anything that doesn't align with God, we're creating neuron pathways in our head. The more we think about said things, good or bad, the stronger those neuron pathways become. And if we haven't been bringing God into our struggle as business owners, as key employees, and having him there with us every step of the way, and we allow those self-defeating, unhelpful stress response or anxious thoughts to go on long enough in our head, they become very strong, and before we know it, it's our way of being. And we're trapped in that anxiety. I'm going to teach you how to get untrapped from that anxiety. All right, we're bouncing back and forth. My testimony being so long, I gave Teresa everything except that, and I've been playing with that for the past week to try to whittle it down. So we're going back and forth between phone and PowerPoint. Oh, thank you. Teresa told me that. I forgot. Right there. Perfect. Can anyone define anxiety for me? This is when you guys get to talk. Let's hear it. I would have wagered money he'd be the first to answer. Thank you. Phil. Say it again. Say it again.
An irrational fear of normal stuff.
Bingo. Who else? Someone give me something.
Feeling of unrest.
Okay.
Trying to control things that are out of my control.
Yes.
Pressing and unrelenting oppressive.
Yep. Say it again. Yep. I won't call on the doctors and clinicians and put them on the spot for a definition of anxiety.
It's an unnatural fear response.
There we go. Anxiety is our adrenaline system firing when it shouldn't be. I like simple to the point, something we can actually use definitions. Anxiety is our adrenaline system firing when it shouldn't be. Since few can define it or get their hands around a definition that works, that sticks, so that they can actually make some change in their life, how are we going to fix a problem we can't define, we don't know what we're playing with? Now we know what we're playing with. I got to remember my things back here. Anxiety is our adrenaline system firing when it shouldn't be. And the good news is we may not know what to do with this anxiety, what Western medicine calls anxiety, but we absolutely know how to tame our adrenaline system. 3-letter agencies, law enforcement, physicians, medical professionals, athletes, so on and so forth. They've been taming their adrenaline system for many, many years. They couldn't perform under the pressures that they do if they had their adrenaline system running amok. So we know how to do that, hence, we know how to tame our anxiety. So I'm going to give you guys an example. So suppose right now, I say, just kidding. We're not here to listen to me talk about anxiety, and I ripped this suit off, and I've got my trainer outfit underneath it. And I said, it's personal trainer Chuck, and we're going to go through a workout. And we clear out this room, and I'm your trainer for the next however long. I start taking you guys through a workout. What are the symptoms you're going to experience? Your breathing's going to increase or become labored. Your heart rate's going to increase. And if I push you really hard, you're going to get wonky, weird thoughts in your head. Those are the symptoms we experience when we're working out. However, we think nothing of those symptoms because there's a direct cause and effect that makes sense to our logical, rational brain. Unless you're Adrian and you think a workout's going to kill you.
There's a story there.
There is. However, if sitting here right now, or when you're driving home today, or when you're in your office, your heart rate starts to increase, your breathing becomes labored, and you start getting wonky thoughts in your head, it's gonna scare you a lot. I gotta think right words to use. It's gonna scare us. The exact same thing is happening when we're working out, is when we're feeling those symptoms sitting here in our car, in our office, or anywhere else. We're not gonna die working out. We're not gonna die with those uncomfortable feelings that Western medicine calls anxiety. To add to that, I might call it a mindset makeover, a tool that I use personally all the time, and teach a lot of people to use it. We can make a choice to start overriding our feelings and emotions with intellect. So this dude, Chuck, just told you that what's going on when you're working out is the same thing you're feeling when you got those anxious feelings or the stress response feelings going on. You can take that with you today, and when you start feeling that, those unwanted symptoms, reason with it. Become friendly with it. You no longer have to be fearful of it. Push into it. Try to see what's going on, and that intellect can go a long way with overriding that emotional response. Give you a quick example. I went to that Lions-Vikings game, which I would venture to guess anyone in this room would love to have gone to. Absolutely not. That is the last thing I wanted to do. I might have to go to the Super Bowl if they make it with a client who needs me to keep them sober. I want to do that even less, and I might even send my wife instead because she likes that stuff. Type thing. So Lions game, I get invited. It was actually a client gift, and my brain just starts getting the better of me. My body doesn't want to go. My brain doesn't want to go. My 12-year-old wants to go like there's no tomorrow type thing. So I started overriding my emotional response of not wanting anything to do with being at Ford Field that day with logic. I'm doing this for my son. Be a good dad. Chuck, what is the apprehension? What evidence do I have to support not wanting to go to Ford Field, and so on and so forth? And I talked myself right through this whole thing to get me there. I started thinking I was having a fever as I'm walking out the door to, you know what, like that's, the brain can get a hold of you, and I can counter it with intentional thought and intellect. All right, so we defined anxiety. Now I'm going to, I keep forgetting I got my thing back here. So we defined anxiety. Now I want to teach you how to stop it. There's all kinds, stop it in real time. Lots of teachings out there, some of them good, some not so good, different stuff. I've arrived at a breathing technique that I find is the absolute best, and I'm going to teach that to you guys this morning. So when we're experiencing anxiety symptoms, stress response symptoms, whatever you might be calling it, this breathing technique is what we can jump to calm that adrenaline system and bring ourselves to that place of peace. Mouth closed, tongue on the roof of the mouth. Slowly breathing into the nose, counting to 5, pause. Slowly breathing out through the nose, counting to 5, pause. Make sense? Easy enough? What I would like to do, I'd like us to do it for the next 3 minutes in this room, if we could. So you guys start, mouth closed, tongue on the roof of the mouth. Slowly breathing into the nose, counting to 5, pause. Slowly breathing out through the nose, counting to 5, pause. And you guys do that. Mouth closed, tongue on the roof of the mouth. Slowly breathing into the nose, counting to 5, pause. Slowly breathing out through the nose, counting to 5, pause. You guys keep doing your breathing. I'm going to talk a little about what you're doing, how you're helping yourself while you're doing it. So as you're doing this breathing, one of the things you're doing is you're informing your brain that there's a new way of being. That you don't have to just sit and bear down and fight through that anxiety. You don't have to just let it run its course. You're telling your brain, nope, there is a new way that I want you to be. You're putting it a check at the very least. It might take some practice to actually cement that new way of being. But moving forward today, You jump into this breathing technique when you're feeling anxious or a stress response, your brain's paying attention. Whoa, there's a new way I can be. Peace and calm is much less energy, takes much less energy than an anxious response. So the brain just naturally wants to gravitate towards something like that. Mouth closed. Tongue on the roof of the mouth. Slowly breathing into the nose, counting to 5. Pause. Slowly breathing out through the nose, counting to 5. Pause. Gonna go for about another minute. Keep doing your breathing. Mouth closed. Tongue on the roof of the mouth. Slowly breathing into the nose, counting to 5. Pause. Slowly breathing out through the nose, counting to 5. Pause. Mouth closed. Tongue on the roof of the mouth. Slowly breathing in through the nose, counting to 5. Pause. Slowly breathing out through the nose, counting to 5. Pause. Repeat. Alrighty, you can stop your breathing or keep doing it if you're liking it. Another question for you guys. Did anybody notice anything while they were doing that breathing exercise that they would care to share with us this morning?
I almost fell asleep.
For real?
Yeah.
I've sat with clients before. It's usually young people with severe anxiety, and they're literally bouncing out of their chair in front of me. I take them into this breathing exercise. I've got one guy I work with a lot. He nearly falls asleep every single time within 3 minutes. This breathing exercise will pull someone out of a full-blown panic attack often in 60 to 90 seconds. This is gold. Anyone else care to share anything they experienced doing it? Breathing? Yes, Parker.
I noticed I stopped worrying what I have to do for the rest of the day. It's kind of like cleared me out where I'm like, okay, I'm here now and I'm good.
He was able to ground and center himself and be present. He didn't have to worry about the rest of his day. Happy for you, man. Anyone else care to share anything they experienced through the breathing exercise? Yes.
I stopped thinking. I was more so just counting and more conscious that way. My thoughts weren't elsewhere.
Stop thinking. Thoughts weren't elsewhere.
I felt a lot more aware of my senses. Like I could really feel my heartbeat and just like tingling all over my, just more heightened awareness of everything.
Yes. Did you tee all these people up, Adrian? Or what? Like, who?
I stopped thinking about what I have to say after you're done.
Anyone else care to share what they experienced?
I felt tension leave my body
Okay.
that I didn't even know I had.
Okay.
Yeah, I had an inner peace. I actually felt my shoulders. I have a lot of tension in there. I felt them just relax. Like they almost weren't tensed up anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I just felt my pulse, felt my heart, I could just feel like my blood coursing through my veins. It was just very silent, but very present.
So this dude, Chuck, who didn't go to college and has no worldly credentials, has a gift from God that just taught you how to change everything about how you're feeling with a very, very simple breathing technique. God is good. If you didn't experience any change or didn't work for you, I guess I would ask how much caffeine have you had today? Might be part of it. And if you've been strapped with anxiety or an unwanted stress response for long enough, going back to where I started, we got neuron pathways that are driving that. And if we've been stuck in that place for long enough, it's going to take some concerted intentionality to turn that tide, to start to have our body grab a hold of this new, calm, peaceful way of being. But you heard enough people talk, and there's probably more that didn't talk. It works. There are some best practices with breathing technique. One of which is we want to jump to this breathing technique as quickly as we can. As in, no, don't just send one more email. Don't keep typing. Don't just get the task done because I'm at work. Anxiety always gets worse type thing. If anyone in here suffered with it, you know that. Best practice would be push. I'm starting to feel anxiety come on. I'm just going to push away from my desk and my keyboard. And I'm going to let that email sit. And I'm going to jump into this. Whatever it may be, the quicker we jump to this, the quicker we can pull that adrenaline system back down to calm before it escalates. And if we got any sufferers in here, it escalates to panic, and that is not fun. This breathing technique is what's going to stop us. Other best practices, as I said, that we've got those neuron pathways that may be pretty hardwired in our head. We would do ourselves well to practice this breathing technique often. Whether we're feeling anxious or an unwanted stress response or not, make this a daily habit. 3 times a day. Yep, 3 times a day. Or you can set an alarm on your phone, do it every hour for 3 minutes, depending how quickly you want things to shift for you, going from anxiety to calm. This breathing exercise also works great for sleep. You want to add to it, elevate your legs really high like a big exercise ball, a big 90-degree angle with your legs in bed, and do this breathing technique. You'll wake up in the morning with the ball somewhere in your room, legs to the side. It'll knock you out. This breathing technique works. Now I'm going to teach you the best part. I already said gold. I'm going to say gold again. I'm going to bring you the gold. How do we permanently remove our unwanted anxiety and stress response symptoms? Pop quiz. What's anxiety? Definition. Collaboratively, we got it. Good job, guys. So there's lots of tips or techniques or teachings or self-help stuff out there that deal with anxiety. Some decent. I've yet to find anything that truly delivers what we need, that truly is backed by the Word of God. Total permanent transformation from those struggles that we have. And I'm going to bring you that today. Most of what's out there teaches us how to cope. It makes people a lot of money, keeps our mental health care system in churning. When I read the Word of God, I see nothing about coping. Transformation, healing, getting our struggles gone. So what's going on in our brain when we're experiencing anxiety? We've got a trigger, known or unknown, outside stimuli. Neuron pathway is going to fire in our head. Neuron pathway is going to connect, and we're going to experience the unwanted symptom, stress response, anxiety, or other. Has anybody heard of epigenetics or neuroplasticity? Okay, good. Epigenetics, massive science discovered in the 90s, which is brand new for science. Small fraction of it that I grab a hold of. Epigenetics tells us that we can change everything about who we are down to a DNA molecular level based on outside factors, good or bad. I parlay outside factors into what I speak, read, and hear. So if there's any truth to that, and if I'm struggling, maybe I spoke, heard, and read myself unwell. So then maybe I can speak, hear, and read myself well. There's an excellent resource if this epigenetics, neuroplasticity stuff piques your curiosity at all. Dr. Caroline Leaf on YouTube. Millions of followers. She combines high-level and low-level science and medical stuff with the Word of God, from short clips to hour-long stuff. Dr. Caroline Leaf is an excellent resource regarding what I'm talking about when it comes to neuroplasticity and epigenetics. All right, practical solutions for you is what I told Teresa I'd be bringing today. So how do we get rid of those neuron pathways that are driving those unwanted anxiety and stress response symptoms? We need to identify that intrusive thought, that lying thought, that unhelpful thought, whatever it may be. We need to call it out, and that's where every teaching I've ever seen, except for what I'm bringing you today, which I learned from Dr. Jeannie Cagle sitting here before me, we have to replace it with the truth. If we stop it, we're going to be stopping it forever, and that's coping. Coping's rubbish. God's a God of permanent transformation. We need to replace it with the truth, and here's why. Actually, we're going to say for who's why in a second. So let's try this thing out. Can somebody give me an example of an anxiety or stress response inducing thought or thing that happens to them? I'm going to play with some real examples, or with one. Finances. Tell me a thought or something that hits your head.
Don't have enough money.
Don't have enough money. Tell me more.
I don't know. Rent.
Okay.
Rent.
So an example, I don't have enough money, is what he said. So an example would be, and we want to speak this because epigenetics, what we speak, read here, brain, thank you for telling me I don't have enough money and this month is going to end badly. We're acknowledging what's going on in our brain. We are letting our brain know that we are fully aware of what it's doing to us. Brain, thank you for telling me I don't have enough money and the bills aren't going to get paid. That's a lie. The truth of the matter is, and then whatever an individual's truth may be, type thing. So when we're doing that, we're stopping that neuron pathway from connecting. I'm identifying it, telling the brain, as I've said a few times, I'm onto you. That's a lie. I'm preventing that connection from happening. And guess what? If that neuron pathway doesn't connect, said symptom doesn't present. The brain does this thing that's called pruning. The brain goes through, so one of the things the brain spends the most time on, one of the things the brain spends the most energy on is how to not spend so much energy, how to conserve energy. So the brain goes through and routinely scans, looking for neuron pathways that it's not getting a connection on, meaning neuron pathways it's putting juice and energy towards, that it's not getting that return on, and your brain is going to go through and scan and see, I'm not getting a return on, I don't have enough money. I'm wasting energy even firing that thought, and poof, it prunes it out, plucks it out, gone. Permanent transformation. And when we're speaking the truth, we're creating a new neuron pathway in our head, and presumably we're speaking healthy truths, the truths of God. We're creating new neuron pathways that are godly, peaceful, calm, content, and accepting. So we're stopping the negative, our brain's plucking them out, and we've also created this whole new calm way of being with this neuron pathways going through our head. We've just gone from being anxious, stressed out, to a new calm, peaceful way of being. Where are we in time?
Don't let it bother you.
All right, I'm going to go for another second. So I'm going to get you through the end of this real quick here so Teresa invites me back again one day. So if we've been struggling with anxiety for any amount of time, I'm going to say that we've been losing to it. And we need to, part of our solution is creating wins. So suppose I've lost to anxiety 1,000 times. It's beating the snot out of me. I need to start turning that tide. I call a win anytime I intentionally use one of the tools I brought you today to stop my unwanted anxiety or stress response symptoms. And the great news is I don't need to create 1,000 wins to offset the 1,000 losses I've had to that anxiety in the past. The brain catches on. So I get anxious and I jump to a breathing technique, or I employ the, stop it and replace it with the truth type thing. Each time I do that, I'm creating a win. Win, maybe I lost on the third time, win, loss type thing. The brain catches on. We get a couple few dozen wins under our belt, and the brain just starts to pivot. That anxiety response is a lot of effort and a lot of energy. I keep bringing it to calm, and the brain just starts to default and turn that direction by creating those wins. Those wins, meaning I'm no longer a victim to my anxiety. I can intentionally stop it. Also plays into my psyche, my bravado, and my confidence. I can do something about this anxiety. I don't have to cower down and let it just do its thing like maybe I have for many years past. Outliers. We can't have our life in disarray. We can't be living, have secrets. We can't be not sleeping. We can't be eating garbage. We need to be, we can't be sedentary. We need to have our life in balance. Sleep, eat, diet, godly, buttoned up life. So if we have a life of disarray and we're looking to find a place of peace and calm, that's not really how God operates. So that would be an outlier to these things working. If we've got unhealed trauma or brokenness, those things can be in the way of removing our anxieties. The great news is you can get to work on getting rid of your anxiety using the tools I've brought you and also button up any deficient parts of your life at the same time, and that synergy will come together and you will experience that transformation. I'm here to help. If Adrian's company did the QR code thing right, you could scan that and you will have my contact information. I didn't test it. I do a lot more than just anxiety. Won't get into it now. You can consider me your one-stop shop for all things mental, behavioral health, and addiction. I may or may not be the solution. I've got a vast, regularly vetted network locally and coast to coast across America. If I'm not your guy, I know who your person is, and I will get you connected with them. I'm just a phone call away. God has blessed me beyond belief. You guys only heard a small portion of it. It's only by his transformation, by his grace, his mercy, and his love that I stand here before you today. So, if anyone in this room has any doubt that God is a miracle worker, I'm your proof. And there's a lot more proof in this room because I know most of the people here. I'm no more special than anyone else in this room today. I'm probably the craziest one in this room today, though. Jeremiah knows it. Type thing. Don't lose hope. Don't stop praying. There is a solution. Thank you.